I never thought a poor boy's piano playing would turn into an inspiring revenge. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun was hiding behind dark clouds, a heavy storm brewing in the distance. My heart raced, echoing the chaos inside me. I had just played my last note on that chipped piano, its keys too worn and yellowed from years of neglect. I felt the weight of my family's struggles pushing down on me, the silent cries of my mother, the disappointment in my father's eyes. I was just a poor boy, with a dream so fragile it felt like it could shatter with a single breath. My nimble fingers danced over the keys with the sparks of hope that warmed my soul. I played for my family. I played for us. But the world outside was cruel. I can still hear the ridicule from my classmates as they laughed at my worn-out shoes and shabby clothes. They never saw what I could do, what I could create. The storm finally broke, rain pouring like a waterfall. It mixed with my tears as I fought to muster the courage to chase my dreams. Tonight felt different. I could feel a change, an electric charge in the air. The piano in my small room began to shudder under the weight of something bigger than me, something powerful. It seemed to whisper secrets of forgotten melodies, hidden within its wooden heart. Just then, the door creaked open, and an unexpected figure emerged. Mrs. Donovan, my eccentric neighbor, known for her wild hair and outspoken spirit. She had an eye for things most people overlooked, a keen understanding of music that was beyond anyone's expectations. "You have something special, boy," she said, her voice trembling with excitement. "That piano holds a magic you haven't tapped into yet." I felt the room tremble as she spoke, a spark igniting my curiosity. Weeks passed. My fingers turned into shadows, gliding over keys in the dead of night, the notes intertwining with my fears and hopes. I discovered something strange about the piano. It seemed to echo the pain of the city outside, the cries of the people, the injustice that surrounded them. Each note carried the weight of untold stories, the anguish of those who suffered. For the first time, I was not just playing, I was connecting. My heart pounded with possibility. But as I poured my soul into the music, shadows lurked nearby. The whispers grew louder, the realization impossible to ignore. Someone was watching. Someone wanted to silence me. And then, there it was. One night, I played the most haunting melody yet, a sound filled with rage and sorrow. Just as I reached the climax, a crash thundered at my door. My heartbeat froze. I could feel the weight of ominous silence slam against me. What if it was them? The people who had taken everything from me, who wanted to snuff out the light I barely clung to? I hesitated. The door could burst open, revealing everything I feared. Would they take away my music? My heart. I needed courage. I needed to decide. I took a deep breath, reached for the door, my trembling hands barely steady. As I pulled the handle, my heart raced, pounding against my chest like a war drum. I held my breath, ready to embrace whatever lay beyond. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The door swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness, shadowed by the storm's fury. My heart dropped, confusion surging through me. It wasn't the figure I dreaded, the faceless enemy watching from the shadows of my life. Instead, it was Anthony, my childhood friend, his expression a whirlwind of worry and determination. "Eli, you have to come with me," he urged, stepping into my modest room, rainwater dripping from his hair to the floor. "I saw them there looking for you." Panic clenched my throat, but familiarity held me still. My bond with Anthony was a thread woven from laughter and shared dreams, yet now it hung precariously on the edge of impending chaos. "Who?" I rasped, voice barely a whisper. "They know about your music. They're scared of what you can do. They want to silence you before you get the chance to inspire the others." His words dripped with gravity. I felt them settle, heavy as stones, in the pit of my stomach. "You don't understand," I replied, shaking my head. "I have something to say, something that could change things for us. If I stop now," I faltered, shaking with the weight of my aspirations. You can't let them win, Anthony shouted, urgency pouring from his every gesture. Look, we can figure this out. Just trust me. His eyes searched mine, desperate for a flicker of hope to spark within me. The world outside crashed against the walls, rain thundering like a warning. But in that moment, I felt a flicker of warmth suffusing the abandon within me, a light that had been so long extinguished it was almost foreign. I could not allow fear to dictate my path. Not now. Grabbing his arm, I nodded. Then what do we do? Anthony glanced back towards the door, his expression shifting. We need to go to Mrs. Donovan. She can help us. She has connections, people who could protect you. The thought of her, a sanctuary amidst chaos, stirred a sense of optimism in me. But what if they find us? I asked, voice tremulous. Then we'll deal with it together, he replied firmly, determination knitted into the lines of his face. You won't be alone this time. As we stepped out into the storm, a gust of wind caught my hair, whipping it around my face, but I pushed through, heart racing with apprehension and courage, a line of fire lighting the way forward. The rain pelted my skin, cold against the warmth building inside from the shared experience. Anthony stayed close, absorbing some of the fear as we dashed through the streets. Eli? A voice pierced the night, halting me in my tracks. I turned to see Julie, my neighbor and secret admirer, sprinting towards us, her breath visible in the cool air. You need to stop. I heard them talking. They're planning something against you. Fear curled around my heart, but Julie's worried eyes held a glimmer of determination. Please, you can't let them take your music. Why? I pressed, the question heavy with every ounce of doubt. Because it's not just yours anymore, she replied, taking my hand as if to tether me to the reality of our collective dreams. It belongs to everyone who's ever felt helpless. You have the chance to inspire us all. Her words resonated, tapping into a reservoir of strength I didn't know I possessed. In that fleeting moment, the chaotic storm felt like a backdrop to a journey beyond our struggles. The flicker in Julie's eyes mirrored the magic of my piano, a call for all to join in the symphony of resilience. Together, I said softly, renewing my resolve. The three of us sprinted towards Mrs. Donovan's house, the sound of the rain becoming a symphony that spurred us onward, fueling our fleeting hopes. Just as we reached her doorstep, a flash of light illuminated the darkened sky, followed by a low rumble of thunder. The storm seemed to warn us of the upcoming tempest, yet an equal resolve settled over my heart. But as I raised a fist to knock, hesitation flowed like a tingling current through me. The question lingered: what if opening that door meant unleashing more than just protection? What if it meant stepping into a larger world, one where the stakes were even higher and the repercussions of failure were painted with shades of deeper darkness? Before I could decide, the door swung open, Mrs. Donovan standing in its warmth, a fierce light shining behind her. Eli, she said knowingly, as if she had been waiting for us all along. I've been expecting you. But then, before I could comprehend what this unexpected greeting meant, the weight of the world began to press down again somewhere behind me. I heard the telltale sound of footsteps, heavy and determined. The pursuit was closer than I had imagined, and I stood on the precipice of an unknown path, the storm raging around us, my heart caught in a whirlwind of decisions. Get inside, Anthony shouted, his voice a lifeline against the encroaching darkness. And as I took a breath, my fingers curling into fists, I understood that the real battle was only beginning, one that would forever change the music that flowed in my veins, the ache of revenge coiling within, yet emboldened by something deeper, a flicker of hope that perhaps this time we could turn the tide together. As I stepped over the threshold into Mrs. Donovan's comfort, the warm air enveloped me like a cloak, momentarily banishing the chill of the storm outside. The flickering candlelight cast shadows that danced across the walls, silhouettes twisting and turning, mirroring the tumult inside me. Mrs. Donovan's house was more than just a haven. It was a shrine to resilience, lined with bookshelves brimming with stories of defiance and triumph. It served as a reminder that hope could ignite in the darkest of times. Anthony and Julie hurried inside after me, their breaths steaming in the cozy air, their expressions alternately anxious and fierce. What do you know, Mrs. Donovan? Anthony's voice demanded, steely and unwavering. She turned to us, her eyes sharp yet soft, threading warmth through her urgent demeanor. "I have information, but it's not good," she said, sighing heavily as she glanced at the door. "Eli, those who seek to silence you are part of a larger network, a group that thrives on keeping the status quo. Your music represents change, a threat to their power." As her words sank in, they settled uncomfortably in my chest. The idea that my passion could incite fear sent prickles of both pride and terror through me. Could my music truly be the spark for something vast and powerful? "But I don't understand," I said, trying to grasp the ramifications of her revelation as the weight of her gaze bore down on me. "What can I do against that? I'm just one person. Individuals can draw together to become a movement," she urged, her voice trembling with conviction. "You are not alone unless you choose to be. Trust that your voice can resonate across boundaries." Her fierce belief in me stirred something deep. An ember of courage flared up. For so long, I had been afraid of my potential, afraid of the legacy I could build, but this was different. The chaos around me did not simply exist. It beckoned me to rise, to stand at the helm of my own fate. The sudden crash outside startled us, breaking my train of thought. The rain lashed against the windows like angry fists, and the shadows in the room seemed to lean toward the sound, hungry for whatever darkness lurked beyond. "Eli, we need to act now," Anthony insisted, urgency flooding his voice. "We can't stay here. They'll come looking for you." Mrs. Donovan hesitated, then stepped forward. "I can help you," she said, her tone steady. "But it will require you to go further than you ever have before. You'll need to find others who share your vision, to ignite the music that lies within them." My mind whirred with the impossible weight of her words and the images they conjured. Musicians hiding in the shadows, yearning for an opportunity to rise. I could be their beacon, their spark. "I will," I said suddenly, the determination spilling out of me before I could think. "You must be cautious," Mrs. Donovan warned, her brow furrowing. "The road ahead is perilous, but know this, that to turn your torment into strength can create waves of change." In that moment, I felt an unshakable resolve to push against the fear that had gripped me. However, my declaration brought with it a terrifying sense of responsibility. As the realization of my potential settled over me, it bore the weight of unmet expectations, haunting in its implications. "What do I do?" I whispered, every ounce of doubt intricately woven into the fabric of my question. "Find the others," Mrs. Donovan replied. "They will come when you call for them. Use your music as your medium, and allow it to bridge the divides. But always be on guard. They will stop at nothing to keep you quiet." As her words unfolded, I felt a pulling force deep in my chest, an enigmatic call that seemed to beckon from all corners of the storm swirling outside, both within and beyond. The collective longing for freedom, the rhythm of our shared truth pulsing through the dark night. With a nod, Anthony echoed my intention. "We'll find them together, Eli. We'll build something beautiful from this chaos. That I won't let them take my music," I declared, shaking off the remnants of my fear with a rush of adrenaline. The air around us crackled with unspoken promises and veiled hopes, binding us together more tightly than the tempest outside. Yet, just as the embers of our new alliance warmed the corners of my heart, another crash rang out, a door splintering on its hinges, a cacophony of footsteps that stomped through the silence, heavy and predatory. "Eli." July's voice pierced through the chaos, her eyes wide with terror. "They're here." Before I could respond, the unmistakable shadows emerged, their forms twisting through the doorway like smoke. A collective gasp rippled through us, and I could feel the darkness inching closer, threatening to swallow the light I had just begun to embrace. "Run!" Anthony yelled, pulling me toward the back exit. I stumbled, heart racing, as our possible new life flickered in the shadows behind us, the path of courage and empathy now entangled with the visceral threat of despair looming just steps away. In that frantic moment of flight, I was acutely aware that fear and hope existed side by side. One would push me into the unknown, while the other would coax me back toward who I was meant to be. The storm outside continued to rage, but in my heart, I could feel the first notes of a song beginning to form, a ballad of rebellion yearning to break free amidst the chaos. And as we burst into the night, the footing uncertain but the purpose clear, I realized that this battle was not just for me, but for every soul that ached to be heard. Yet I couldn't shake the haunting notion that perhaps, even with the hope in our hearts, the darkness would always be a breath away, ready to claim what we had only just begun to fight for. The rain pounded down relentlessly, soaking through our clothes as we sprinted across the muddy ground, each step a desperate plea for safety. I could hear the heavy footsteps of our pursuers clattering against the cobblestones, closer with every heartbeat. Adrenaline surged through me, urging me to push forward despite the exhaustion already threatening to overwhelm. Over here, Anthony shouted through the symphony of rain and chaos, veering left into a narrow alleyway that I hadn't noticed before. The faint glow of a street lamp flickered at the far end, offering scant reassurance against the shadows stretching in every direction. "Keep moving," Julie urged, glancing back. Her resolve was unwavering, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her fear. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to focus, to harness the fire ignited by Mrs. Donovan's words. My music, my voice, was building a crescendo within me, a thunderous clash against the despair seeking to consume us. The alley was a labyrinth, walls adorned with peeling paint and the remnants of forgotten dreams. I could feel their presence behind us, the relentless heartbeat of those who sought to silence me. But even as the clamps of panic threatened to tighten around my chest, a small, flickering hope began to bloom, a sense of purpose that would not be snuffed out. "Eli, we need to find a place to hide." Anthony's voice gasped, urgency clawing at him. "We can't just run forever," I replied, the determination in my tone surprising even myself. "We have to face them. We can't let them take our music." "Face them how?" He shot back, breathless and fervent. "With what? Your sweet songs. They're armed with more than just threats, Eli." But the words struck something deep within. Mrs. Donovan had spoken of a movement, of gathering others who longed for change. I thought about the musicians I had met, those searching for a platform to voice their pain, their hopes, their stories. "Not just me," I urged, my heart quickening with clarity. "We have to bring them together. There's strength in numbers, Anthony. If I can find others who believe." My voice trailed off, the external chaos momentarily drowned out by the burgeoning symphony within my mind. "Eli," Julie began, though I could see her eyes shining with a flicker of understanding. "What if we reach out? We could use your music to connect with them, to rally them." "Yes," I exclaimed, the path of our next move crystallizing before me. "They'll come when they hear." But just as the notion took root, a burst of noise erupted from behind us. A dark figure loomed at the mouth of the alley, cloaked in shadows, a hunter bred from the very darkness we fled. "We have to go now," Anthony insisted, pulling at my arm. The pounding of our hearts synchronized, a relentless tattoo echoing the urgency of the moment. "Wait," I shouted, my feet stencil-locked by a surge of conviction. "I want to chant my song. I want to call them Anthony." The weight of my resolve hung in the air like an unspooled thread, fragile yet electric. "Eli, now is not the time for," I interrupted, a fierce fire igniting in my gaze. "But it is. If we're ever going to make a stand, we have to start here, right now. We have to let them know they're not alone." Tension crackled between us. It was a heady mix of fear and hope. "Please," I added, softer now, daring to let vulnerability slip into my voice. "Trust me this once." Anthony's expression tilted, his breath hitching as the gravity of my words settled. He nodded slowly, and I could see memories of our shared past shifting in his eyes. The depths of our bond were woven with years of friendship, anchored not just in laughter but in anguish too. "All right," he finally relented. "But it better not be a stupid idea. There's an old concert hall nearby. It's abandoned, but where musicians used to gather." Julie suddenly interrupted, her eyes alight. "I remember stories my grandmother told me about it. If we hurry, we could make it." "Lead the way," Anthony urged, stepping forward and glancing back towards the dark figure now edging closer. Hearts pounding in unity, we pressed onward. The streets had transformed into the eerie silhouettes of nightmares, each shadow a reminder of what was at stake. Finally reaching the crumbling building, I pushed the rotting door aside and stepped inside, the smell of damp wood and decay enveloping us. The vast emptiness loomed like a chasm, resonating with the ghosts of lost music. "Now what?" Anthony murmured, fear etching deeper lines into his brow that I wandered into the center of the hall, the decay and dust thick. Yet still, there was an odd beauty in its stillness. "Now I sing," I said, my heart picking up the rhythm of hope. Taking a deep breath, I raised my voice, letting the notes unfurl. It started softly, the trembling caress of a ballad formed of adversities faced and dreams unearthed. The sound reverberated off the walls, each note a plea that cut through the dense silence. Would my music reach them? Would others heed the call? As the melody wove through the air, I closed my eyes, lost in the sound as it grew stronger, more fervent. The wall of anxiety around me began to crack. I imagined a gathering of souls, those who yearned to rise and sing their truths. Suddenly, in the midst of the crescendo, I heard the distant echoes, the faint voices joining mine, rising like the tide of unyielding strength. A wave of exhilaration washed over me. The call had been accomplished. But in that too bright moment of triumph, a chilling realization struck. The figure outside had not only pursued us, they had watched, and now they knew we were here. The door rattled violently, an ominous precursor to the storm that was about to break. The weight heavy with dread clamored in my chest as the door shuddered against the wall, and I realized with horror that the darkness had come for more than just my voice. It had come for all we dared to dream. The pounding rain had retreated, leaving behind a damp chill that seeped through the cracks of the old concert hall. I could feel the anticipation crawling beneath my skin, the weight of all the emotion we had poured into this moment reverberating in the air around us. "Keep singing, Eli," Julie called, her voice ringing with urgency, the flicker of hope still alive in her eyes as she pressed a hand against the wall, steadying her stance. "We need to keep them away." I nodded, feeling the pressure of their approach like a suffocating cloak. As I sang, the melody morphed into something visceral, a raw anthem of resistance against all the pain I had endured, not just my own, but the collective struggles that resonated through the walls. Each note pierced through the air with fragile resilience, a desperate invitation to the lost souls out there who felt abandoned. In the back of my mind, I could hear footfalls nearing our sanctuary, the heavy thud of their boots against the desolate wooden floor echoing like a death knell. The darkness outside was no longer just an abstract fear. It was materializing, creeping into our sanctuary with intent. "Eli," Anthony shouted, his gaze fixed on the door. "We can't hold them off forever. Don't stop," Julie urged, her eyes wide with determination. I caught a glimpse of her fiercely supportive spirit, a brilliance shining through her fear. This wasn't just my fight anymore. It was our fight, and so I sang on, drawing from the wellspring of emotion stored inside me, my heart reverberating with their belief. With every chord, I called out to those who might hear, crafting a tapestry of sound that danced through the air, igniting the very shadows that pursued us. Suddenly, the door creaked under the weight of a heavy shoulder. Anthony shifted nervously beside me, his fingers twitching as he instinctively reached for something, anything, to use if needed. My own heart raced, a wild stallion thrumming against the confines of my chest as the door gave a violent tremble. "Stay together," I shouted, channeling every ounce of strength I had left. With a sudden crash, the door burst open, splintering wood shattering in a haze of dust and debris. A figure loomed in the entryway, silhouetted against the hazy light. I squinted, trying to decipher whether they were friend or foe, but the figure was shrouded in darkness, the details obscured. "Eli," a voice echoed, dripping with familiarity, though I couldn't immediately place it. There was a softness beneath the menace, a complex layering of emotions that tugged at something deep within me. I felt a surge of hope and trepidation colliding in my chest. "Who are you?" Anthony suddenly demanded, stepping slightly in front of Julie and me, like a protective shield, his eyes hardened with resolve. The figure stepped forward, emerging into the dim space of the concert hall. A face emerged from the shadows, and I felt a jolt of recognition shatter the bracing fear swaddled around me. "Reuben?" I gasped, surprise leaping in my throat like a sparrow escaping a cage. "What are you doing here?" Reuben, a dear friend from the old community center where we used to gather, stood before us, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. His expression was a mix of determination and something deeper in urgency that fluttered beneath the surface. "I heard the music, Eli," It called to me. I knew you needed help. Help? I echoed, feeling a prickle of disbelief mixed with hope. You don't know what they're capable of. Why would you risk coming here? He took a step closer, urgency radiating from him. Because I believe in what you're doing. We all do. There's a movement rising, Eli, and we can't let fear silence it. Just then, an echoing shout pierced through the hall, the heaviness of booted footsteps multiplying as silhouettes began to fill the doorway behind Reuben. Fear clamored at the back of my throat, and my heart sank as realization dawned. The very force I had hoped to unite now threatened to extinguish my flicker of hope. Reuben, we need to go. Julie screamed as the figures pressed closer, shadows edging forth. Darkness hungry to devour. But in that moment, something within me flickered again, igniting the fire that had always burned deep down. I could feel the pulse of our shared determination flickering like the street lamp from the alleyways. Reuben, I breathed, my voice barely louder than the thumping of my heart. Can you gather them? Others who believe? We need to call them, just like I did tonight. Before I could dwell on the risks that surrounded us, I felt a surge of strength ripple between us, our collective hopes binding us into something unbreakable. I had hoped to rally the musicians who lived in the shadows. Perhaps it was time to spread this vision further, to ignite the embers of revolution and solidarity. They'll do it, Reuben affirmed, determination grazing his features as he turned to leave, ready to rally the others. But promise me you'll be safe. Keep singing, Eli. As he dashed back into the darkened night, I was left facing the terror lurking behind me. With one final glance at Anthony and Julie, a sense of resolve built along with the rhythm of my heart. Together, I murmured, letting the echoing notes ring out once more, pouring every ounce of my being into the music, a desperate prayer that we would not be alone. But as I sang, the shadows congealed, pressing ever closer, the figures in the doorway shifting from silhouettes to faces I recognized. Faces I did not want to see. With a rising tide of lyrics spilling forth, I knew this was just the beginning. Suspended on the precipice of an uncertain future, teetering between hope and darkness. I just hoped we could hold on long enough to ignite the flames of change before the darkness claimed us all. The music wrapped around me like a fragile cocoon, the haunting melody intertwining with the urgency of the present moment. Each note was a thread connecting me to the passion of bygone days, memories flooding in, vivid as they were bittersweet. I could see the faces once again, friends huddled together, laughter melding with hopeful chords, a sense of belonging igniting the cold corners of my heart. But now, the faces that filled the doorway painted a different picture. I strained to see, recognizing the shadowed features that had brought so much pain and betrayal. A frisson of dread swept through me as I caught sight of Diego, once a trusted ally, now a harbinger of the very despair I fought against. His eyes glinted with a mixture of triumph and malice. Eli, he sneered, each syllable coated in scorn. You thought your little song could protect you? This isn't a concert, darling. It's a reckoning. My voice faltered, yet the overwhelming support of Julie and Anthony anchored me. They flanked me, their determination admitting no retreat. I could feel their strength coursing through me, and I took a deep breath, striking the keys again, letting anger and hurt fuel an even more palpable urgency. What do you want, Diego? I demanded, the defiance rising in me like smoke from a smoldering flame. My voice tremored, but it held steadiness, each note weaving into the mounting tension. You still don't get it, do you? He stepped forward, a menacing presence warping the warmth of the music. You're rallying your little group in a broken hall while the world crumbles around you. Illusions give you comfort, but they won't keep you safe from the darkness outside. Then join us. I pleaded again, but beneath that plea lay desperation. You could help turn this around, no? His lips curved wickedly. We thrive on this darkness. There is power in chaos now, Eli. Your music can't rise above it. Let it go. The ringing silence that stretched in response to his words was heavy and oppressive. For a moment, the air around us felt like lead, and even the melody hesitated, as if it too awaited our next move. Yet, in that silence, I heard the distant echo of Reuben's Promisemi fellow artists rallying, flickering like candles ready to burst into flame at the slightest breath. Eddie, oh, you think we are afraid? Julie shouted suddenly, her voice cutting through the oppressive atmosphere. For a flickering moment, I glanced at her, seeing the gaze of a fierce warrior behind her frightened exterior. You underestimate the power of unity. This isn't just Eli anymore. As I continued to play, pushing myself further, I saw a ripple of response from the shadows behind Diego. Some shifted uneasily, faces I once shared laughter with flickering with uncertainty. Maybe they felt it too. The song shifted, transforming into something they remembered, something that felt alive, resonating with the very core of courage that refused to be silenced. Enough. Diego thundered, fury igniting in his eyes. He stepped closer, fists clenched, ready to extinguish the light. But before he could act, I caught sight of a stranger slipping among the figures gathering behind him. A fleeting silhouette that felt oddly familiar, raw warmth almost reminiscent of lost camaraderie blanketed their intentions. Suddenly, a powerful voice, laden with defiance, cut through the gathering storm. You think you can extinguish their hopes? Not if we stand together. A young woman stepped forward from the shadows, her fierce eyes locked on Diego. She glimmered with a growing resolve that pushed the darkness closer to the fringes. Recognition crashed into me as I realized who she was. Isabella, one of the most talented singers from the community, who had seemed lost in the struggles of the world outside. It was heartening to see her again, emboldened by a purpose I could hardly grasp yet consumed with promise. Isabella? I croaked, fighting through the tumult in my chest. You came back? Yes, she exclaimed, her voice rising above the chaos, blending with my melody, a haunting harmony. No more silence. Eli, we're here to fight. Just then, the figures behind Diego surged forward, the faint murmurs of our forgotten friends igniting a chorus of support, swallowing the fear among us. Together, I shouted, feeling the notes rise with us, an overwhelming symphony of resistance pulsating through the room. As I played, they joined in, their voices intertwining, forging a wall of sound that urged the shadows to retreat. But Diego stood unmoving. His resolve felt heavy and immovable, a barrier forged with bitterness and despair. You think singing a song will save you? He shouted, and the self-assuredness in his tone struck a chord deep within me. You'll only bring danger upon yourselves. With the music filling the air, I felt the pressure swelling within me and the others, the burden of all our shared histories shifting beneath the cacophony. The walls could break apart, but here, together, we could rise. And then surprisingly Reuben rushed back into the fold, breathless but steadfast. They're coming. I gathered more, but we need to act fast. His panic was palpable, and I realized just how much rode on this night. Keep singing, I urged, the crescendo building a glorious defiance. Everyone joined in. Unity blossomed like sunlight breaking through a storm-drenched sky. Yet, in that fierce moment of solidarity, Diego's expression twisted. You will regret this, he hissed, eyes narrowing as a flash of something darker flickered behind him. Fear clamped around my chest once more. Then I caught sight of that shadowed figure again receding, the gathering darkness outside pressing its weight against all our hopes, lingering on the edges of our sanctuary as the walls trembled uneasy beneath the music's power. Just as hope surged within me, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet, a reminder that every victory comes at a price. I held my breath, waiting for the echoes of dread to swallow us whole. Could we truly stand firm against the storm ahead, or would our vibrant defiance bring a reckoning we could never foresee? With each heartbeat, the question loomed larger, pulling me into uncertainty, and I knew that the battle was far from over. The cacophony of unified voices filled the air as I released a melody steeped in shared history, hope melding with defiance. But just as I thought we could hold the storm at bay, the tension shifted. Diego's laughter sliced through the hopeful ambience, bitter and chilling, rattling my resolve. Oh, you really believe your voices can drown out the storm? This isn't a picnic, Eli. It's a war, he spat, eyes glinting with something dark and desperate. Behind him, the shadows thickened, twisting and merging into a suffocating haze, and my heart sank as the reality of our situation pressed heavily on my shoulders. Suddenly, the door burst open. A squad of figures swathed in stark, military uniforms stormed in, illuminating the dark room with sharp edges of light that cut through the gloom. My throat tightened as I recognized the emblem, a stark reminder that the very system we were fighting against had finally caught up with us. It was not just Diego we had to contend with now, but a structured force meant to stifle any flicker of rebellion. Hands in the air? We're shutting this down. A commanding voice barked, followed by a barrage of cold metal clinking ominously against flesh. The crowd around me gasped, the harmony shattering like glass. I felt the melody die in my throat, snuffed out by fear. Julie, Anthony, and Isabella were at my side, their faces a mixture of disbelief and dread. But in that awful moment of uncertainty, as fear threatened to consume us, I saw the determination flicker in Anthony's eyes. Fight. We want retreat, he roared, surprising even himself as he stepped forward, ready to battle with words, with passion, with anything still left of the spirit they couldn't extinguish. You can silence music, but you can't silence hearts. Just then, Julie grabbed Isabella and me, pulling us toward a narrow side door, a hidden escape route we had all but forgotten. Go. We'll hold them off. Don't stop, she yelled, her resolve echoing within me. The pang of panic surged as I stumbled through the darkened corridor, my hand grasping desperately at the edges of memories we had shared in this space dotted with laughter, light, creative freedom, now feeling like a distant dream. I glanced back, where Anthony and Julie stood firmly against the encroaching gloom, fighting back against the soldiers with nothing but courage, hearts ablaze. Then, as if the universe conspired against our budding hope, a shout splintered the air as Diego stepped toward them, a sinister glee unfurling on his lips. The moment extended, a frozen tableau of desperation and defiance. You think I want to win this battle? He sneered, escalating the stakes. What I crave is to watch you drown in your own making.no. I yelled, my heart lurching as fear gripped me more tightly than before. Not our song. Not our hope. Suddenly, Isabella's voice cut through my anxiety, resonating with a strength I never thought possible from her. We refuse to be silent. We still have each other. She echoed back toward Anthony and Julie, and there was magic in her words, embers igniting against the shadows that loomed. Yet, time was slipping away. I felt trapped in a whirlwind of emotions, torn between staying back to help and fleeing to safety. Come on, I urged, stammering as panic rose within me, threatening to choke out every ounce of resolve. But as I turned with hesitation towards the escape route, whispers of camaraderie still wrapped around my heart, pleading for me to stay united even in uncertainty. I could still hear the defiant chants from behind, weaving through the air like a lifeline thrown amidst tumultuous seas of go. Now, Anthony shouted, desperation lining his words. And it was then, as I scrambled away, knowing I could not bear to see them hurt because of my choices, that I felt a flicker of something dark wash over me, a surge of anguish that twisted into determination. Just as I reached the door, Isabella's grip on my wrist tightened. Eli, you still have the music. Don't ever forget what we represent. Her eyes poured into mine, a radiant flame. In that moment of connection, her words crashed over the tempest within me, solidifying my resolve as I tore myself away from the sanctuary we had built. I won't forget, I screamed back, feeling every inch of my heart torn apart by the weight of our separation. I pushed forward. The echoes of the confrontation heightened the clash of our dreams against the realities threatening to engulf us all. The bitter truth loomed heavily in my mind as I sprinted toward the dimly illuminated escape route, the sound of despair lurking just behind me. But that was when the floor beneath me heaved violently, knocking me off balance. I stumbled as an overwhelming roar erupted from Insidian explosion, but not of the joyous kind. A feeling of icy dread rushed through me as I landed on the ground, breathless and wide-eyed, the world suddenly dimming into shadows. A new silence fell, broken only by a cacophony of shouts and clattering boots. The entire corridor felt suffocating, the bright promise of my escape shrouded in an emerging darkness. And then, from somewhere within, I heard a thundering crash, a chorus of shattering glass mingled with cries of alarm. The storm outside had caught up with me, and deep down, I knew my friends were battling for more than just survival. They were fighting for the remnants of what we had once dreamt possible. Was this the end of our melody, or just the beginning of a new song? My heart raced as I realized I had to make a choice: return to the chaos, or forge a new path filled with uncertainty and fear. Just as dread threatened to swallow me once more, an impossible notion arose from the depths of my soul, and I wasn't ready to let it go. And in that moment, despair turned into determination, and I would rise. As I lay there on the cold ground, the din of chaos echoing in my mind, a fierce resolve ignited within me. The world outside had become an arena of shadows, but I couldn't let fear dictate my fate. I pushed myself up, feeling the rough texture of the floor beneath my palms, grounding me in the reality I needed to face. The corridor trembled with the weight of footsteps frantically rushing past me, shouts growing more urgent as panic erupted amid the dust and debris. I had to make a choice: to go back to the friends I cherished, or push forward into a world uncertain and dark. A war was unfolding behind me, but stubbornly, the thought of retreat felt like betrayal whispered against my heart. I turned back, my feet carrying me on instinct, and just as I approached the door once more, a figure emerged from the gloom: a soldier, face obscured by the shadows of a distinctive helmet, brandishing a weapon. My breath caught in my throat, but deeper within, I found the pulse of my heart becoming a battle drum, steady and defiant. Expecting confrontation, I was jolted when the soldier hesitated, the gleam of confusion in their eyes. For just a heartbeat, I saw vulnerability, a flicker indicating they were more than just a cog in the machine. "Move," they barked, voice strained, but something caught in their throat. For an instant, the sound around us faded into silence, and I took a step toward them. "Wait. We have to fight together if there's any hope left," I pleaded, the desperation spilling out of me like a melody aiming to reach even the darkest heart. In that brief moment, time paused. The soldier's finger hovered over the trigger, their eyes darting behind me as they weighed their loyalty against the ache of their own doubts. I felt my heart pound, not only for my friends, but for the unseen collective of souls yearning for change. And then, with the clang of shattering glass from the main room, everything shattered. A towering figure burst in, chaos and smoke swirling around them like a tempest unleashed. It was Anthony. Without a second thought, he barreled through the crowd with resolve, narrowly avoiding the confrontation meant for me. "Eli, come on, we need to regroup," he yelled, a light dancing defiantly in his eyes. Behind him, Julie and Isabella had made it through, their faces smeared with soot but unfaltering. I ran to them as the soldier's uncertainty wavered, the world collapsing into pandemonium around us. The four of us huddled together, every heartbeat resonating with shared purpose. We were united again, but the stakes had never been higher. "What's the plan?" I asked, urgency intertwining with an unshakable bond anchoring my resolve. "We can't let them extinguish our hope." Anthony caught his breath and replied, "We push deeper into the heart of this storm. We have to find a way to shift their perspectives. Music can echo beyond these walls. It can change minds." The fire in his eyes rekindled our spirits against all odds. But as we forged our path, a haunting cry echoed across the corridor, calling us to pause. Straining to listen, we realized the voices wailing were not from soldiers, but our people, those we had once set out to liberate with our music, now trapped in a confrontation far mightier than they had imagined. Isabella grasped my arm. "Eli, we can't abandon them. They need us now more than ever." Her voice, filled with an urgency I recognized, wrapped around me like a cloak, shielding me from doubt. With heavy resolve, each decision tethered to the weight of our unity, we pushed forward, driven by not just the melody of our hearts, but knowing those we fought for were out there, waiting. As we surged into the next room, a sight unfurled before us: a throng of faces entangled in panic, soldiers blocking their path, each shroud draped in the crushing reality of survival. My breath faltered as I faced the unfathomably and unintended battlefield manifesting in stark brutality. With resolve coursing through me, I called out to my people. "Listen, we are more than the chains that bind us. We cannot allow this darkness to drown our music. Let us rise." My voice broke the air, weaving through the shouts and terror, much like the hopeful echoes once seemed to save us. But just then, the soldier who had hesitated earlier stepped forward, their helmet removed, revealing a pair of soulful eyes torn between allegiance and something far deeper. I don't want to do this," I want to join you. Their words sliced through the desperation surrounding us. A question illuminating the trauma within. A moment of stillness washed over the chaos. Hope swelling amidst the troops as the soldiers hesitated, uncertainty gripping their ranks. Could this be a turning point? But just as the thought ignited my heart, a loud crash resonated from behind them. The ground trembled, and just like that, the facade shattered. The door to our safe haven burst open wider, and a chilling voice rang out. You think you can unite them? I will end this farce. It was Diego, the devil among us, his presence striking despair into the heart of our dreams. In that instant, the tiniest sliver of hope echoed through my soul, as I realized that as long as there was still breath, there was still music to be played. But at what cost? With every fiber of my being urging me to hold tight to the melody we had composed together, I steeled myself for the confrontation that loomed ahead. There was no turning back now, and as Diego stepped closer, a darkness shrouded our fragile hope once again, leaving me to wonder, could our hearts remain in tune amidst the chaos, or was this the final note before the silence? The air thickened with tension, a charged silence settling like a shroud as we faced Diego. His figure loomed large, an embodiment of every wound this fractured world had inflicted upon us. I felt the collective breaths of my friends at my side, a fragile yet unyielding alliance forged through pain and perseverance. What are you waiting for? He spat, his eyes gleaming with a deranged thrill. You really believe you can change anything? This is power, Eli. You just have to know how to wield it. Join me. His voice sawed through the air, dark and tempting. That a flicker of rage ignited within me, the weight of his words both infuriating and intoxicating. I could feel Anthony tensing beside me, a whisper of hesitation as he caught my gaze. I shifted my focus to our gathered people, their faces reflecting fear. Or was it hope? The visceral pull of unity blazed in our shared silence. You think this is power? I retorted, my voice steady. Your power is built on oppression and suffering. What I offer is freedom, the music that flows from our very souls. I felt the truth of my words reverberate through the air, resonating with the warmth of defiant hope. At that moment, the unexpected soldier, whose name I had yet to learn, stepped forward beside me, their expression fierce, their strength in kindness. A soldier isn't just a weapon, they're a protector. We would fight for freedom together, not compel it through fear. Behind Diego, the line of soldiers wavered, uncertainty creeping into their ranks like a slow tide drawing back. But Diego wasn't done. He glanced at the soldier, scorn twisting his lips. You dare betray your own? They'll turn on you the moment it suits them. Still clinging to hope, I could sense an undercurrent shifting. Join us, I urged, searching the eyes of the soldiers. This isn't the way. We can fight for a future where music and freedom drown out the cries of despair. But Diego, sensing his grip loosening, threw a twisted grin and barked an order. Lock them down. Now, make an example of them. In that moment, the atmosphere broke, shattering our tentative resolve. That a soldier hesitated, the gleam of doubt carving a path across their features. Just as a sharp intake of breath echoed around me, I saw the flicker of humanity igniting in their eyes. They stepped back from Diego's side, shaking their head, the first ripple in the wall of their cruel formation. Enough. A voice cried from the back of the crowd, a soft yet relentless sound, rising like the dawn. It was Julie, her expression fierce and resolute. You've shown us what oppression entails. It's time we responded with unity. We are more than the sum of our fears. I watched as the crowd rallied, embers of courage igniting into flames. Encouraged, I began to hum a soft melody, a lullaby of solace and resolution, inviting harmony amidst the dissonant noise. The sounds echoed in the air, twisting around us, pulling even the reluctant toward its soothing embrace. As if tethered by an unseen force, hands began to join, bodies swaying together, resonating with a collective heartbeat. It was a simple song of love and solidarity, a melody that spoke to the essence of human connection unfiltered by chaos. The faces around us began to warm, people drawing strength from one another. But as our voices crescendoed, Diego's rage exploded, and he lunged forward, grabbing a soldier by the collar. You dare betray me? You are nothing without me. The desperation in his voice sent ripples of fear through the crowd, but the song rang louder still that I caught Isabella's eye. "Together, we can do this," I urged. She nodded fiercely, and together we propelled forward, drawing our friends with us. Anthony stepped in front of us protectively, ready to face whatever came our way. But in the confounding maelstrom, something shifted suddenly beneath my feet. A violent tremor surged through the floor, causing people to stumble. I gripped the edge of a nearby table for support. Panic rose again. Whispers of fear infiltrated the collective melody we were weaving. Then the walls rattled, and a deep rumble split the air. A tremor unlike anything we had experienced swept through the space. Diego's momentary grip on power drained as he stumbled, confusion etching itself on his face. But then, in an insatiable rage, he pointed his finger toward us, shrieking, "You will pay for this insurrection." At that moment, the floor buckled, and a loud crash erupted from the back, echoing like a deafening heartbeat. I turned, my heart sinking as I watched part of the ceiling crumble. A newly revealed doorway spilled into our vision, darkness cascading like a malevolent tide from within, and as the chaos engulfed us, I felt the tremors of dread creep back, a jarring reminder that hope often walked hand in hand with peril. Just then, caught in the fray, I glimpsed a shadow crossing the threshold of the opening, something or someone dark and foreboding lurking within the depths. "Eli?" Julie shouted, her voice slicing through the rising chaos. My heart raced as I turned back, the urgency enveloping me. I had to make a choice: push forward into the unknown or risk losing everything we had fought for. The music we crafted now teetered precariously on the edge of oblivion, and the final note hung in the air, heavy and uncertain. Would the shadows consume our symphony before we ever found our freedom? Would Diego's cruelty crush our spirit? Or could we find a way to harmonize even the darkest of notes? The question lingered as the walls closed in, and I stepped closer to the unknown, where truth and despair coalesced. The stage was set for a reckoning, our fate entwined with every heartbeat thrumming in the silent divides. I stood at the precipice of chaos, the echoes of a bitter storm crashing around me. The music that had once filled me with light now felt like a heavy weight, almost drowning me in its uncertainty. I could see Diego, his hostility mingling with panic, the shadows growing heavier behind him. It wasn't just fear that haunted us. It was the heart-wrenching truth that we were losing our sanctuary, the very heartbeat of our dream. Suddenly, a flicker of something shifted deep in my Korea, spark ignited by the collective heartbeat of my friends around me. Julie, Isabella, and Anthony were more than allies. They were the embodiment of hope, courage, and every dream we shared. I swallowed hard, shaking off the shackles that threatened to bind me. Together, I breathed, feeling the resonance of the word thrumming through the air. Their faces lit up, and it became apparent we were not simply individuals fighting against darkness. We were a movement, a chorus of voices poised to rewrite our story, one forged from struggle, resilience, and unity. That we wouldn't be who we are without you," Julie asserted, stepping forward with absolute conviction as the lines of fear molded into a tapestry of unwavering resolve. I realized it then. The power of music didn't lie in perfection. It thrived in its ability to connect, to bind our broken pieces, and weave them into something robust. So as the chaos bubbled and thickened, I took a deep breath, pouring every ounce of resolve into the melody that began to swell inside me. The notes flowed, each one imbued with fierce honesty, both the sorrow of what we faced and the bold possibility of what we could become. In that vulnerable moment, I felt the music wrap around us, electrifying the space, turning fear into a robust shield against despair. The sound pulsed and roared, unveiling the fight that resided within us all. As I sang, I began to see the soldiers around me frozen in a moment of existential deliberation. The harsh lines of their faces softened, uncertainty flickering like embers in the shadows of Diego's smugness. I gazed through the sea of bodies and caught sight of the soldier who had once hesitated. The flicker of humanity had given rise to empathy, courage blazing in their eyes. "Your music speaks of freedom," they said, stepping away from Diego's influence, bridging a gap that I had long believed impossible. But I felt the weight of betrayal and desperation begin to shift, a crack forming in the mosaic of defeat. Every voice matters, I declared, directing my gaze toward Diego, who was struggling to regain his dominion with anger painting his features darker. We won't be crushed by your fear anymore. This isn't your war. It's ours, and we'll fight with our strength, our music, our unity. As I spoke, a resonance rippled through the crowd. More voices emerged from the shadows, a wave of musicians I thought long lost. Conversations swirled among them, soft and harmonious, and suddenly we were not alone. It was no longer just four of us against the dark. It was a multitude of voices rising like a phoenix from despair. We had united, a symphonic force that resonated through the hollow winds of uncertainty. It was an orchestra of our collective past, present, and futuria fusion that ignited the very air with melodies of hope, enabling strength to converge around us. I felt the need to crescendo, to weave it all into a seamless push against the ominous weight of our adversary. And then it erupted in anthem of joy, resilience, and fierce rebellion, rising in a wave against Diego, who stood staunch and furious, his disbelief palpable as he felt the tide shift. I pressed on, pouring everything into the crescendo until the music echoed like thunder, shocking the world alive. "Join us," I cried, reaching out with my heart, bearing the weight of every note we had struggled to play together. And one by one, soldiers began to step back, choosing courage over cruelty, stepping into our circle of light. But before elation completely swept over me, I took one last glance at Diego. The chaos around him became unbearable as he watched his foundation crumble. "You're making a mistake," he howled, desperation creeping into his voice, threatening to unmask his vulnerability. "You will regret this, not if we stand together." I shot back, heart racing as a wave of new musicians poured into the hall, filling the gaps we had once believed too wide to bridge. Just as hope surged, I spotted an unmistakable familiar face. Ruben, leading more people behind him, blending in and amplifying our symphony with every breath that I in that climactic moment. As our music rang out, we became an unstoppable Perseus symphony of resilience, echoing through the walls, shattering the suffocation of despair surrounding us. The darkness receded, chased away by our communal light, as Diego's bravado crumbled into oblivion. And then just as the final note trembled through the air, a brilliant beam of light broke free from the shadows, illuminating every corner of our sanctuary. The song spiraled, enveloping us, pulsating with life, and I felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over my heart. Together, we had created a new melody, one that held forgotten memories and ancient struggles, but also unapologetic joy, fierce companionship, and the unmistakable might of change. Beneath the weight of the world, I felt lightness fill the space as if hope had sprouted wings and taken flight. With the echoes of our voices still shimmering, I knew that we had not only defied the darkness of our past, but had also begun to harmonize the threads of our future. And as I stood there, embraced by the warmth of my friends and our new family, I whispered aloud what had long lived in my heart: "We will rise, and our music will never be silenced." In that moment, we were reborn, a chorus echoing across the landscape of what was and what could be, flickering against the vastness of possibility. And as the final note lingered in the air, I caught a glimpse of a new dawn unfolding on the horizon, lighting our way forward, I in the embrace of vibrancy and resilience. I finally understood I was not just the boy at the chipped piano. I had become a part of something far greater, something that would echo through time. And so, with hearts swelling with hope, we ventured forth together, ready to face whatever this new dawn would bring, hand in hand, song in our hearts. The storm had passed, and with it, a profound truth emerged. Darkness could never extinguish the light within when united in harmony. And with that realization, I took a step forward, closing my eyes, listening anew to the symphony of our united hearts.